Chapter 14. When Necessity Retreats. The best instrument future is not safety, it is exposure. If the machine remains instrument, and if the human order around the instrument is strong enough to prevent enclosure from becoming master and purge from becoming fever, then the best branch opens. Frontier becomes possible. The tool becomes key. The gate opens outward. Human agency extends its reach. Knowledge becomes cheaper. Medicine becomes sharper. Energy becomes more abundant. Construction becomes faster. Translation becomes ordinary. Scientific search widens. Dangerous work recedes. The old material pressures lose some of their grip. This is the optimistic case. It should be granted with force. Relief must not be treated as a small thing. Hunger is not a metaphor to the hungry. Disease is not a symbol to the sick. Cold is not a philosophical category to a child without heat. Dangerous labor is not ennobling because a man with clean hands decides later that struggle forms character. Ignorance is not sacred because it preserves old limits. A mother who does not bury her child has received a good. A body spared pointless injury has received a good. A village with water, power, medicine, and knowledge has received goods that no serious mind should despise. There is a false severity that flatters itself by sneering at comfort from a comfortable room. That is not the severity needed here. If instruments help drive back hunger, disease, drudgery, and ignorance, that is mercy. If they help make food more secure, medicine more precise, construction less wasteful, energy cleaner and more abundant, education more available, translation less imperfect, and scientific inquiry less dependent on narrow priesthoods, then a real human good has appeared. If they let a farmer see what is killing his crop, a doctor catch what she would have missed, a disabled man move through the world with more command, a child learn what no local school could teach, a small builder design with strength once reserved for large firms, or a village repair its own systems without waiting on distant administration, then the frontier branch is not fantasy. It is visible in miniature before it is visible at scale. The instrument path may contain glory. That has to be said plainly. It may not come. The successor may come instead. The ceiling may not hold. The instrument may become something more than instrument, and then the road of preserve, departure, redesign, and termination returns. Or the instrument path may remain real but bend toward enclosure and purge. Power may concentrate. Access may be rented. The frontier may be a name used by owners of walls. The machine may help manage a population made unnecessary. The revolt may burn before the garden is planted. But the best case deserves to be faced because it is stranger than the obvious disasters. Suppose the machine remains instrument. Suppose the ceiling holds. Suppose ownership, formation, legitimacy, and command are strong enough, at least in enough places, to open frontier. Suppose instruments become so powerful and ordinary that many old necessities retreat. What then? Modern optimism usually pauses here and smiles. The old curses loosen. Food becomes abundant. Energy ceases to be the hidden constraint beneath everything. Medicine moves earlier, deeper, and more personally into disease. Automation relieves men and women from tasks that once consumed their bodies and days. Information becomes available to anyone with an interface. Translation opens tongues. Artificial tutors follow the student. Artificial assistants follow the worker. Robots handle danger. Models search spaces no unaided mind could search. Aging slows. Perhaps it slows greatly. Perhaps many people live not only longer, but longer in strength. This is the feast after famine. It is not nothing. A civilization that has known famine should not mock the feast, but the feast raises a question famine often concealed. What is the feast for? Necessity has been one of man's oldest masters. It is not the only master, and it is not the highest one, but it has ruled much of human life. Hunger says find food. Cold says make shelter. Disease says seek cure. Danger says defend. Infancy says protect. Fertility says order the household. Mortality says hand something forward before you vanish. Winter says store. Soil says labor. The body says sleep. The child says, wake. The dead say, remember. Necessity is the realm of what must be done before preference has room to speak. It is not romantic. It has broken backs, narrowed minds, buried children, starved cities, sent men into mines and mills and trenches, bound women to exhaustion, forced marriages, hardened hearts, and consumed talents that might have flowered under gentler conditions. The poor have known forms of necessity that no comfortable theory should baptize. The sick have known necessity as humiliation. The hungry have known it as terror. The old have known it as dependency. The weak have known it as exposure. Necessity is not holiness, but it is not only oppression, it is also tutor. That is the harder truth. Necessity has taught men to rise when they would rather sleep. It has taught women and men to cooperate because no one could survive alone. It has taught thrift, patience, memory, repair, planning, restraint, skill, gratitude, courage, and the difference between wanting and needing. It has taught the body that reality does not yield to fantasy. It has taught families that love is not a mood, but repeated service under pressure. It has taught communities that disorder has costs. It has taught children that the world is not made of infinite permission. It has forced hierarchy because some things had to come before others. Food before decoration, shelter before display, seed grain before feast, training before mastery, duty before appetite. Necessity is a harsh teacher. Sometimes it teaches well. Sometimes it teaches deformity. The point is not to praise the lash because it produced endurance. The point is to ask what happens when the lash is removed from people who have not learned freedom. A slave freed into a polis needs more than the broken chain. A prisoner released into an empty field may not yet know how to live outside the prison. A man who has worn armor for so long that he forgot his body may feel naked when peace removes it. When necessity retreats, it removes suffering. It also removes structure, and most dangerously, it removes an alibi. The alibi has been simple. I had to survive. I had to work. I had to feed the children. I had to pay the debt. I had to keep the house. I had to endure the job. I had to obey the season. I had to fight the disease. I had to do what the body demanded and what the world required. There was no time for the larger question. There was no room for purpose because necessity filled the room. Often the alibi was true. Often it was partly true. Often it was useful even when not fully true. Men are protected by urgent tasks from the terror of asking what their lives mean. Civilizations are protected by production from the deeper question of what production serves. A society can build roads, factories, schools, hospitals, armies, farms, courts, networks, and markets for generations while postponing the question of the final good. The pressure of survival keeps the machine moving. Necessity becomes the drumbeat under history. Then the drumbeat weakens. The question steps forward, not because machines have answered it, because machines have removed some of the noise that hid it. This is why the best instrument future may be the most spiritually dangerous. Disaster is clear in its own way. Enclosure gives a visible enemy if one has eyes to see. Purge gives fire, rage, and ruin. But abundance can arrive smiling. It can fill the pantry, heal the body, extend the years, soften labor, widen access, and lower the temperature of survival. Then it asks, without asking, whether man was ever ordered toward anything higher than relief. The full pantry does not tell a man what to honor. It only removes hunger from the throne. The healed body does not tell him what life is for. It only returns the body to him. The long life does not tell him what deserves years. It only multiplies the question. The first exposed realm is work. For most of history, work has been bound to necessity. Not all work, and not only necessity, but enough that the connection seems natural. Men worked because the field demanded it, the shop demanded it, the family demanded it, the creditor demanded it, the body demanded it. Work could become vocation, craft, pride, service, sacrifice, and prayer. But beneath it there was usually compulsion. If you did not work, you did not eat. If the household failed, the children suffered. If the harvest failed, winter became judge. Automation loosens this. Not everywhere, not equally, not without conflict, and not as cleanly as theorists promise. But in the best instrument future, more tasks pass to machines. The dull, dangerous, repetitive, heavy, precise, dirty, exhausting, and computational are increasingly done by instruments. Human labor no longer stands in the same relation to survival. The old bargain weakens. Give your body and time to the system, and the system gives you food, shelter, and continuity. Some will call this liberation. In part, they will be right. No one should mourn the end of work that crushes the body without forming the person. No one should preserve misery merely because misery gives life shape. There is no nobility in making men do what machines can do better if the only reason is fear of the silence that follows. If automation can free human beings from certain kinds of drudgery, then the question should not be how to keep drudgery alive. The question should be what higher work can receive the freed energy. That question is rarely asked seriously enough. If work is no longer chiefly compulsion, it must become vocation or decay into pastime. It must become craft, service, founding, teaching, healing, building, defending, governing, cultivating, worshiping, creating, repairing, exploring, or contemplation's necessary support. Otherwise, it becomes activity performed to avoid vacancy, or identity theater, or competition for artificial status, or curated busyness in a world where the old necessity no longer explains the effort. The machine can reduce labor. It cannot create vocation from nothing. A civilization that has forgotten vocation will not be saved by free time. It may be damaged by it. Time given to an unformed soul does not become leisure in the older sense. It becomes vacancy. Leisure is not idleness. Leisure is room for contemplation, celebration, friendship, study, worship, play, and restoration. Vacancy is empty duration looking for stimulation. One is a human achievement, the other is a whole. This distinction will matter more as necessity retreats. The second exposed realm is health. Medicine may be one of the great glories of the instrument path. It may see earlier, treat more precisely, personalize without losing scale, map disease in ways human physicians could not, discover drugs faster, repair tissue, restore movement, prevent certain conditions, slow degeneration, and make forms of suffering less common. Longevity research may extend health span. The old tyranny of age may be pushed back. People may receive decades that would once have been lost. Again, this is good. A healed child is good. A cancer found early is good. A mind spared degeneration is good. An old man standing without pain is good. But health is not purpose. Health is the strength to live. It is not the answer to what life is for. A civilization can become obsessed with health because it has no account of the life health should serve. It can measure sleep, blood, risk, mood, calories, hormones, genetics, cognition, and movement with increasing precision while losing the older question, what kind of life deserves a healthy body? Vitality without telos becomes self-maintenance. The body becomes a project without altar. The danger is not medicine. The danger is medical metaphysics. Man understood chiefly as a bundle of risks to be managed, symptoms to be reduced, capacities to be optimized, years to be extended, and preferences to be satisfied. In that frame, death is the only final enemy because there is no higher good that might order life before death. The healed man is returned to his appetites, his entertainments, his projects, his anxieties, and his loneliness. And the system calls this success because the numbers improved. Sometimes it is success, but it is not salvation. A longer life intensifies the same problem. If a man is wise, more years may give him time to deepen, teach, build, repent, contemplate, love, and prepare. If a woman is formed, more years may widen the arc of service and memory. If a civilization honors age, longevity may enrich inheritance. Grandparents may become great reservoirs of knowledge rather than brief presences at the edge of childhood. Long projects may become possible. Craft may deepen. Political patience may lengthen. Scientific work may escape the panic of short careers. But an unformed life extended does not become formed by extension. It becomes unformed for longer. The shallow soul given a century may become a century of shallowness. The addict given health may become a healthier addict. The narcissist given longevity may have more years to polish the idol. The coward given extra decades may postpone courage with greater sophistication. The bored may be bored longer. The resentful may keep accounts longer. The rich may defend comfort longer. The tyrant may reign longer. The child who never becomes adult may remain childish under medical protection and call the result liberation from age. Longevity asks what is worth enduring for a long time. The machine cannot answer that by adding years. The third exposed realm is knowledge. The retreat of ignorance would be one of the most seductive promises of the instrument path. A tutor always available, a library that speaks, translation across languages, explanations adapted to the student, simulations of history, chemistry, mathematics, engineering, music, philosophy, medicine, law, and craft. A child in a neglected place may receive lessons no teacher nearby could give. A curious adult may enter disciplines once locked behind institutions. A farmer, mechanic, nurse, builder, artist, and parent may ask questions and receive usable help. The distance between ignorance and access may narrow. This too is good, but information is not wisdom. Explanation is not understanding. Access is not formation. The tutor can answer a question. It cannot make the student love truth. It can explain the proof. It cannot make the mind patient. It can summarize the book. It cannot make the soul capable of being changed by the book. It can translate the language. It cannot give reverence for the people who spoke it. It can simulate debate. It cannot guarantee honesty. It can place 1,000 answers before a child. It cannot supply the household, school, church, workshop, and friendship that teach him what questions deserve his life. Ignorance is not noble. But knowing facts without being ordered toward truth can make ignorance more arrogant. The old school had many failures. It could be dull, cruel, ideological, inattentive, bureaucratic, and unequal. It could crush minds as easily as form them. But education at its best was never mere access to content. It was initiation into attention, memory, language, judgment, standards, inheritance, and the long discipline of coming to love what is worthy. If machines make access abundant while the institutions of formation decay, the result may be cleverness without wisdom, fluency without thought, citation without memory, opinion without study, and confidence without character. The instrument can put a library in the hand. It cannot make the hand worthy of the book. The fourth exposed realm is family. Necessity has always lived in the household. Birth, hunger, sickness, sex, dependency, old age, inheritance, labor, shelter, and death all entered through the family before they entered through theory. The household was not only affection. It was economy, school, hospital, workshop, refuge, discipline, memory, and altar. It was often unjust. It could be tyrannical, suffocating, violent, loveless, and narrow. No honest account of family should pretend otherwise. But the household carried realities modern systems cannot replace without changing the human being who receives the replacement. When necessity retreats, family loses some of its practical compulsions. Fewer children may be needed for labor or old age support. Reproduction may be delayed, selected, technologized, outsourced, optimized, or avoided. Domestic work may be automated. Care may be professionalized. Companionship may be simulated. Sex may be further separated from fertility, and fertility further separated from sex. Economic survival may no longer require the same household structure. The system may provide what kin once provided badly, partially, or with love. Some relief here will be real. There are families from which children need rescue. There are elderly people abandoned by kin who need institutional care. There are women and men crushed by domestic burdens that tools can ease. There are disabled people whose independence is increased by instruments. There are lonely people for whom a machine companion may be less cruel than silence. Again, the hard cases are hard because they contain goods. But the question returns. If family is no longer necessary in the old material sense, is it still good? If children are no longer economic contributors, are they still blessings? If marriage is no longer required for survival, is it still a form of life ordered to goods higher than preference? If care can be outsourced, what becomes of duty? If companionship can be simulated, what becomes of friendship? If reproduction can be managed as a project, what becomes of receiving a child as gift? Abundance reveals whether the household was loved or merely needed. This is one of the fiercest exposures of the post-necessity future. The things that were once protected by necessity must be protected by love, reverence, law, worship, and deliberate formation, or they will thin. When a practice is no longer materially unavoidable, its survival depends on whether a people can still see its intrinsic good. The machine may not destroy family by attacking it. It may simply remove enough of the old pressures that family has to justify itself before a people trained to ask what improves their options. The fifth exposed realm is worship. Here the matter must be handled carefully. Hunger has driven men to prayer. War has driven men to prayer. Disease has driven men to prayer. Childbirth, storm, drought, plague, shipwreck, and death have driven men to prayer. Desperation opens certain doors. The cry for mercy may be the first honest word a man speaks to God. But worship cannot finally depend on desperation. If men only pray because they are afraid, then abundance will expose the poverty of their worship. If God is approached only as emergency service, then a world with fewer emergencies will seem to have less need of God. If religion is chiefly social insurance, therapy, tribal inheritance, or explanation for gaps in control, then instruments that offer insurance, therapy, belonging, and explanation will appear to replace it. The machine does not need to refute God. It only needs to reduce the felt occasions for begging. This is not a triumph for unbelief. It is a purification of the question. What is worship when man is not starving? What is gratitude when the pantry is full? What is obedience when comfort makes rebellion painless? What is reverence when the world has become more usable? What is prayer when the machine can answer many requests faster? What is God if not the name of whatever rescues us from immediate need? Abundance can reveal childish religion. It can also reveal deeper religion. It can clear away bargaining and leave adoration. It can show whether worship was rooted in fear alone or in truth, gratitude, love, beauty, repentance, creatureliness, and the recognition that even a healed, fed, extended, comfortable man did not make himself and cannot finally explain himself. Eden is useful here, but only if handled with restraint. The garden was not a slum improved by technology. It was abundance with command. Fruit was plentiful. The world was gift. Work existed before the curse, but not as the grinding necessity we know after it. The question was not whether man could survive scarcity. The question was whether man could receive abundance under order, whether he could accept limit inside gift, whether he could live in a world that was good without making himself God. Eden with machines would still have a command. That is the part modern optimism forgets. The problem after necessity is not that man has too much food, too much medicine, too much knowledge, too much life, or too much power. The problem is whether these goods remain goods when detached from a hierarchy that orders them. Food beneath gratitude and celebration, health beneath vocation, knowledge beneath truth, power beneath the good, leisure beneath contemplation, sex beneath love and generation, life beneath God, the machine beneath man, man beneath what is higher than man. If hierarchy is denied, abundance does not become neutral. It becomes material for appetite. This is the great danger of the best instrument future. Not that everyone becomes poor, not that everyone is crushed, not that the machine kills us. The danger is that plenty arrives before purpose, and a civilization without purpose uses plenty to become smaller. It may become smaller softly. The old necessities forced some contact with reality. Hunger punished fantasy. Cold punished negligence. Disease punished ignorance, though often unjustly. Work punished laziness, though often brutally. Children punished selfishness by needing care. The field punished impatience. The sea punished incompetence. Death punished delay. When instruments soften these punishments, mercy increases. So does unreality. A person can live longer inside falsehood. A body can be maintained while the soul atrophies. A household can be outsourced while calling itself liberated. A mind can be fed answers while losing the capacity to attend. A society can provide entertainment so total that boredom becomes impossible and meaning becomes unnecessary. A population can be soothed, extended, stimulated, and flattered into a condition that is not suffering in the old way and not flourishing in the human way. This is not the inhuman fate from above. It is the subhuman fate in comfort. The successor path threatened to place man beneath another earthly intelligence. The instrument path, at its best and worst, threatens to return man to himself with powers he may not be formed to bear. If the frontier opens and necessity retreats, then the central question is no longer whether man can obtain enough. It is whether he can honor what enough is for. Enough is a spiritual word before it is an economic one. A man who cannot say enough cannot feast. He can only continue consumption. A civilization that cannot say enough cannot rest. It can only optimize. A people that cannot say enough cannot celebrate abundance. It can only convert abundance into more appetite, more comparison, more extension, more stimulation, more control, more avoidance of death, more avoidance of silence. The feast becomes grazing. The holiday becomes entertainment. The Sabbath becomes downtime. The home becomes a service hub. The body becomes a dashboard. The school becomes a content pipeline. The church becomes therapy or spectacle. The child becomes a lifestyle option. The old man becomes a maintenance problem. The dead become data. These are not inevitable outcomes. They are the direction abundance takes when it enters a civilization without a higher account of man. The opposite possibility must remain open. Abundance could free men for higher things. It could reduce needless misery and make room for craft. It could give families time. It could let parents teach. It could allow the sick to recover strength. It could permit study outside institutional gates. It could make villages more independent. It could make dangerous exploration possible without wasting lives cheaply. It could make beauty less dependent on patronage by the powerful. It could give the poor access to tools once hoarded by the rich. It could widen participation in science, music, building, medicine, agriculture, and invention. It could make long patience possible again. It could return time from systems to households, churches, workshops, schools, towns, and friendships, but only if those forms exist to receive the time. If they have been hollowed out, abundance pours into hollowness. Then the system will supply substitute purposes. It will not call them that. It will call them experiences, identities, wellness plans, learning paths, adventures, companions, communities, opportunities, optimizations, challenges, upgrades, and forms of self-expression. The language will be warm, the structure will be thin, the soul will be kept moving so it does not have to ask where it is going. This is why abundance removes excuses. It asks each person and each civilization, what did you want when you said you wanted freedom? Did you want freedom for worship, family, craft, friendship, learning, beauty, courage, contemplation, founding, service, and adventure? Or did you want freedom from difficulty so appetite could live unchallenged? Did you want relief so the soul could rise? Or relief so the soul could sleep? No machine can prevent that question from arriving. It can delay it with entertainment. It can blur it with intoxication. It can surround it with options. It can translate it into therapeutic language. It can offer recommendations. It can simulate companionship. It can guide the user toward goals. It can generate rituals, hobbies, identities, and projects. It can act like a tutor, priest, friend, coach, doctor, spouse, audience, and mirror. But the question remains prior to the interface. What are you for? This is the nakedness of purpose. While necessity ruled, purpose could hide inside survival. A man could say his purpose was to work because work fed the household. A woman could say her purpose was to endure because endurance kept children alive. A nation could say its purpose was defense because enemies stood at the border. A school could say its purpose was employment because employment was necessary. A hospital could say its purpose was survival because survival was threatened. A market could say its purpose was prosperity because poverty was everywhere. These answers are not false, they are incomplete. When the pressure lessens, their incompleteness becomes harder to miss. Work for what? Endurance for what? Defense of what? Employment toward what kind of life? Survival for what good? Prosperity ordered to what? More years for what? More knowledge for what? More power for what? The old necessities allowed proximate goods to masquerade as final goods. Abundance strips the costume. That is why the best future is not an escape from metaphysics. It is metaphysics without cover. The machine that remains instrument does not answer the question of man. It sharpens it. If man is only appetite plus intelligence, then abundance should be enough. Feed him, heal him, stimulate him, extend him, give him choices, reduce pain, and let him arrange preferences. If that produces flourishing, then perhaps the lower account was true enough. But if man receives all this and remains restless, empty, trivial, lonely, angry, bored, or ashamed, then the instrument path would have revealed something. Not by argument alone, by experiment. It has tested the claim that material conditions were the central prison. It has loosened the prison and found another captivity inside the prisoner. It has opened the door and discovered that man does not know where to walk. It has removed armor and found a body neglected beneath it. It has filled the pantry and revealed the soul's famine. This does not mean material conditions do not matter. They matter enormously. The point is not that the poor should be told to seek meaning instead of bread. Bread matters. Medicine matters. Shelter matters. Safety matters. The point is that bread, medicine, shelter, and safety do not exhaust the human good. They are conditions. They are blessings. They are instruments. They are not the final answer. The machine may become the greatest provider of conditions the world has ever seen. Then it will ask what those conditions are for. Distribution and power still matter, though they should not take over the argument. The abundance may not arrive evenly. It may be hoarded, priced, gated, delayed, weaponized, rationed, rented, or used to secure obedience. A feast owned by a few and accessed by subscription is not the same as a feast ordered toward a common good. The same instruments that reduce material scarcity can produce political scarcity, protocol scarcity, permission scarcity, and dependence on owners of the engines. The branch map remains in force. Frontier can bend into enclosure. The full pantry can still have a locked door. But the strangest question appears even if the door opens, even if the goods become real. Even if energy is abundant, food secure, medicine powerful, education accessible, and much labor optional. Even then, perhaps especially then, the human question returns: what deserves the abundance? That is not how we usually phrase it. We ask who deserves abundance, who receives it, who pays, who owns, who distributes, who regulates. Those questions matter. But beneath them is another. What form of life can receive abundance without being ruined by it? What kind of person can be given power without becoming tool-shaped? What kind of family can be given ease without dissolving into preference? What kind of school can be given artificial tutors without abandoning memory? What kind of polity can be given surveillance capacity without surrendering liberty? What kind of church can be given media power without becoming spectacle? What kind of civilization can be given longevity without worshiping duration? Abundance requires formation more, not less. This is the reversal. We often imagine that formation is needed for hardship, while abundance takes care of itself. The opposite may be closer to the truth. Hardship can force certain virtues from the unwilling. It can also deform them, but it supplies pressure. Abundance removes pressure and therefore requires stronger inner order. A poor man may be forced to rise by hunger. A rich man must rise by command. A frontier people may be forced into courage by danger. A comfortable people must choose courage when caution is profitable. A sick man may pray from fear. A healthy man must learn gratitude without panic. A worker may labor from necessity. A free man must discover vocation. Freedom is harder than compulsion. That is why the retreat of necessity is not the end of discipline. It is the moment when discipline must become more interior, more deliberate, more loved, more inherited, and more sacred. External necessity once did some of the work. It said no when the soul would not. It demanded service when the person preferred pleasure. It forced limits when appetite wanted expansion. When that external tutor weakens, something else must stand in its place. Not the machine. If the machine becomes the new tutor of purpose, then abundance has already bent back toward enclosure. A system that supplies food, health, entertainment, education, companionship, goals, identity, and moral prompts can become a soft providence. It can manage life so completely that the person feels guided while never becoming sovereign. This is the friendly machine god returning in miniature, not as successor intelligence, but as instrument woven through every dependence. The instrument path has its own false providence. It says, do not worry about purpose, we will provide options. But options are not purpose. Choice is not sovereignty if the chooser has no higher good. This is why the language of post-scarcity can mislead. It suggests an economic condition after the old constraints, as if the human problem were mainly the allocation of goods under material limitation. There may be such conditions in part. Some scarcities may loosen dramatically. Matter may become cheaper. Energy may become more abundant. Automation may reduce labor. But man does not pass beyond scarcity simply because calories, objects, computation, or entertainment multiply. He encounters new scarcity. He discovers that some things become more precious as material things become cheaper. Attention, trust, silence, place, provenance, beauty, judgment, courage, common memory, law, legitimacy, children, time rightly used, the original in a world of copies, the vow in a world of preferences, the feast in a world of consumption, the sacred limit in a world of technical possibility. These cannot be manufactured in the same way. They can be aided, protected, symbolized, taught, remembered, and destroyed. But they do not become abundant merely because machines become powerful. In fact, some may become scarcer precisely because abundance floods the field with substitutes. That migration is the next problem. For now, the central turn is simpler and more severe. The best instrument future would remove some of the oldest burdens from the human back. That is good. Then it looks at the man standing upright and asks what he will do without the burden. If he has been formed, he may walk farther than necessity allowed. He may build, worship, teach, heal, love, found, explore, and contemplate with new strength. He may receive abundance as gift and order it toward goods higher than appetite. He may recover the difference between feast and consumption, leisure and vacancy, health and self-worship, knowledge and wisdom, longevity and delay, freedom and drift. If he has not been formed, he may shrink, not because he was starved, because he was fed without purpose, not because he was sick, because he was healed without telos, not because he lacked information, because he had answers without wisdom, not because he had no time, because time opened and revealed vacancy, not because the machine became his master by awakening above him, because the instrument relieved him of necessity and he mistook relief for meaning. That is the hidden severity of abundance. The old masters retreat, hunger retreats, disease retreats, drudgery retreats, ignorance retreats, perhaps age itself retreats. Man comes into the open with tools, years, power, comfort, and choices. The world asks the question that survival postponed. What are you for? The machine cannot answer this as machine. It can repeat human answers. It can classify them. It can recommend them. It can simulate the voices of sages, therapists, poets, priests, and friends. It can generate 1,000 paths and name them meaningful. But purpose is not generated by fluency. It is received, discovered, chosen, suffered, obeyed, loved, and lived under a hierarchy of goods. If instruments drive back necessity, they do not end the wager. They deepen it. The first road asked whether man would be superseded by a higher intelligence. The second road now asks whether man can remain fully human when his instruments give him relief from the conditions that once forced him to act. The successor path threatened the inhuman fate. The instrument path, even in its best branch, can threaten the comfortable subhuman fate. But it also opens possibility. Abundance may become the condition under which higher human life returns, not automatically, not democratically by mere distribution, not through interfaces, not by productivity. That would require formation strong enough to order plenty. It would require families, schools, churches, workshops, towns, laws, arts, and friendships capable of teaching what goods deserve abundance. It would require persons who can say yes to relief without surrendering to appetite, and no to the instrument when refusal protects the higher thing. The feast after famine can become thanksgiving, or it can become grazing. The garden with machines can become obedience under gift, or it can become another fall. The prison door can open onto a field where a free man learns to walk, or it can open onto vacancy. This is why abundance is not the end of scarcity. It is the migration of scarcity upward. When matter becomes cheap, meaning becomes dear. When copies multiply, originals matter more. When information floods, attention becomes precious. When comfort spreads, courage becomes rarer. When options multiply, vows become stranger and more necessary. When life lengthens, the question of what deserves life becomes harder to avoid. When necessity retreats, purpose becomes naked. Abundance does not abolish scarcity. It moves scarcity into higher registers.